Greetings, everyone. I am Sam Mohsen, founder of consciousnessandislam.com. I would like to welcome you to today's presentation titled Our Fundamental Reality and the Purpose of Traversing the Material Realm. Let's first define the framework of the exploration. Through this exploration, we shall investigate one of the oldest and most profound questions ever asked. What is the fundamental nature of reality, and what is the purpose of our existence within it? Drawing upon insights from science, philosophy, metaphysics, spirituality, and quantum physics, we shall gradually build a case for three interconnected propositions. 1. Consciousness is the fundamental reality. 2. Consciousness is the field of love in which everything arises and through which the unity of existence is reflected. 3. The purpose of human existence is the evolution of consciousness through the elevation of love and the reduction of entropy, the degree of disorder. Finally, in the concluding section of this exploration, we shall examine how the verses presented throughout the Qur'an reflect these same principles, revealing a coherent framework for understanding consciousness, unity, love, and the purpose of human existence. Now, let us define what we mean by the term fundamental reality. Fundamental reality refers to whatever exists at the deepest level of existence, beneath all appearances, labels, distinctions, and changing forms. In other words, if we continue asking, what are we made of, and what lies behind that, until no further depth can be reached, whatever remains is what we call fundamental reality. Next, what do we mean by the purpose of traversing the material realm? By this, we mean the reason for our journey through forms, experiences, relationships, joys, and hardships. It is the inquiry into why consciousness finds itself clothed in matter, why the wave journeys through countless forms before recognizing the ocean from which it arose, and whether existence itself is a path of discovery, remembrance, realization, or perhaps all three. Now let us begin our exploration of today's topic in greater depth. A profound and intriguing ontological insight is that the human being is a microcosm of the material reality we call the universe. In knowing ourselves deeply, we come to know the universe, because the same principles reflected in the cosmos are also reflected within us. This idea appears throughout the history of philosophy and mysticism, from Ibn Arabi to Socrates and Plotinus, all of whom, in different ways, emphasize self-knowledge as a path toward knowledge of reality itself. Symbolically, many ancient traditions describe the universe through 5 classical elements: 1. Earth, 2. Water, 3. Air, 4. 5. Ether or space. These elements can also be symbolically traced within the human being. 1. Earth corresponds to the physical body and biological structure. 2. Water corresponds to bodily fluids and the flowing nature of life. 3. Air corresponds to breath, respiration, and the energetic exchange sustaining life. Fire corresponds to metabolism, transformation, heat, and biochemical energy. Ether or space corresponds to the inner field of awareness, the mental and conscious space within which thoughts, perceptions, conception, comprehension, meaning, and finally experiences arise. Once again, humanity's most central questions may ultimately be reduced to 2. 1. What is the fundamental nature of reality? 2. What is the purpose of our existence within this material realm? To approach the first question, we may investigate either the outer world of matter or the inner world of mind, which finds its locus in consciousness. Interestingly, both paths seem to point toward a deeper unity, and philosophically, unity is the notion of love. If we begin with matter, modern physics reveals that matter is not fundamentally solid. When matter is examined through successive levels of structure, molecules, atoms, subatomic particles, and quantum fields, the apparent solidity of the material world gives way to a deeper reality characterized by probability, uncertainty, and dynamic fields. At the Planck length, approximately 1.6 times 10 to the minus 33rd centimeters, and the Planck time, approximately 5.4 times 10 to the minus 44th seconds, our current description of space-time becomes incomplete, suggesting that space-time itself may emerge from a deeper and more fundamental level of reality. This distinction is scientifically important. At these scales, our existing physical theories cease to provide reliable descriptions of nature. The mathematical frameworks of quantum mechanics and general relativity become mutually incompatible, indicating that our present understanding of the universe reaches its limits. This has led many physicists to conclude that space-time may not be the ultimate foundation of reality. Classical materialism generally assumes matter, space, and time to be fundamental and seeks to explain all phenomena in terms of these underlying realities. However, developments in modern physics have challenged this assumption. As matter is examined through progressively deeper levels, molecules, atoms, subatomic particles, and quantum fields, the familiar picture of a solid, deterministic world gradually dissolves into one characterized by probabilities, uncertainties, and dynamic fields. Rather than stating that matter creates a tiny black hole when examined at the Planck scale, it is more accurate to say that quantum gravitational effects are expected to dominate at such scales. Beyond this regime, our current models of space, time, and matter are no longer sufficient. This suggests the need for a more fundamental theory of reality, one capable of successfully unifying quantum mechanics and gravity and explaining the deeper structure from which space-time itself may emerge. Matter itself is composed fundamentally of elementary particles. The standard model of particle physics includes 6 leptons and 6 quarks. The 6 leptons are 1 electron, 2 electron neutrino, 3 muon, 4 muon neutrino, 5 tau, 6 tau neutrino. The 6 quarks are 1 up, 2 down, 3 charm, 4 strange, 5 top. These particles interact through 4 fundamental forces: 1 gravity, 2 electromagnetism, 3 strong nuclear force, 4 weak nuclear force. Ordinary matter in the visible universe is primarily composed of electrons, up quarks, and down quarks. The heavier particles typically appear only in high-energy environments such as cosmic rays, particle accelerators, or the early universe. According to quantum field theory, particles are not isolated independent objects. Rather, electrons arise as excitations of a universal electron field, while quarks arise as excitations of corresponding quark fields permeating space-time. However, in string theory, this idea is taken a step further. It proposes that what we call particles, such as electrons and quarks, are not point-like entities at all, but different vibrational modes of a single fundamental entity, tiny one-dimensional strings. Different patterns of vibration of these strings give rise to different particles, including electrons, quarks, and the force carriers. To be more specific, all electrons arise from one particular vibrational state of a fundamental string, while all quarks arise from other vibrational states of the same underlying string. In this view, the diversity of particles reflects the diversity of vibrations of a single fundamental reality. This captures the central intuition of string theory. One underlying entity, many vibrational expressions, much like different notes emerging from the vibrations of the same violin string. Thus, what appears as diversity in matter is at a deeper level, a unity of underlying structure, expressing itself in different vibrational forms. Beneath apparent multiplicity lies an underlying unity. Separation appears at the surface level, while deeper reality reveals interconnectedness and relational existence. Philosophically and symbolically, this unity may be interpreted as the metaphysical root of love, not merely emotion, but the fundamental interconnectedness of existence itself. If we instead investigate the inner dimension through consciousness, we encounter a similar movement toward unity. The inner dimension, which we commonly experience as mind, ultimately finds its locus in consciousness, a localized form of non-local unified field of infinite consciousness that transcends time and space, a reality from which all experiences, meanings, and forms emerge. Since everything arises within consciousness, one may reasonably argue that consciousness is primary and fundamental. Our perceptions, conceptions, comprehension, intentions, and meanings are correlated with neural activity in the brain. However, correlation does not necessarily imply origination. While the brain may function as an instrument or neural correlate through which conscious experience is expressed, the experiences themselves appear within consciousness. Furthermore, every finite experience points beyond itself toward an infinite behind. Thus, we can never deny the existence of infinite, in which everything arises. Every particular manifestation suggests a deeper and more universal ground. Thus, the intuition of the infinite is not merely a theological assertion, but arises naturally from reflection upon the finite itself. In conclusion, whether we investigate the outer world through matter or the inner world through consciousness, both journeys appear to move toward a deeper unity. Through the inner path, consciousness reveals itself as the fundamental reality within which all experiences arise. And because all apparent multiplicity emerges within a deeper unity, that unity may be understood as the essence of love, the underlying principle that binds all existence together. Philosophical and mystical traditions therefore regard consciousness as fundamental, not merely a byproduct of matter, but the primary ground from which experience, mind, and world emerge. Thus, whether we proceed through physics or matter, or through mind or consciousness, both paths seem to converge toward deeper unity. At the most fundamental level, we encounter A. Interconnectedness, B. Non-separateness, C. Relational existence, D. And unity. And all of them together, in its existential and spiritual expression, manifests as love. If consciousness and unity are fundamental, then the purpose of human existence may be understood as the evolution of consciousness itself, the gradual reduction of fragmentation, egoic separation, and inner disorder, while cultivating greater awareness, compassion, harmony, and love, and reduction of entropy. In thermodynamics, entropy refers to the degree of disorder or the dispersal of energy within a system. Symbolically, one may view spiritual evolution as movement from inner fragmentation toward greater coherence and integration. In this sense, love becomes not merely an emotion, but a movement toward unity against fragmentation. Even when we search through every philosophy, every sacred scripture, every spiritual tradition, every holy book, and every divine revelation, we will discover that the infinite has been called by countless names and described through countless attributes. Yet when each name is traced to its deepest meaning, and each attribute is followed to its ultimate source, they all seem to converge upon a single reality: love. Now we can see that these above prove the following as we outlined at the beginning. 1. Consciousness is the fundamental reality. 2. Consciousness is the field of love in which everything arises and through which the unity of existence is reflected. 3. The purpose of human existence is the evolution of consciousness through the elevation of love and the reduction of entropy. We shall now examine these same themes from the perspective of the Qur'an and explore how the insights discussed above find expression within the language of divine revelation. One of the most profound teachings of the Qur'an is that the human being is not merely a body moving through space and time. Rather, the human being possesses both an outer dimension and an inner dimension. This duality reflects a deeper metaphysical principle found throughout creation and rooted in the divine reality itself. The Qur'an declares in verse 57:3, "He is the first and the last, the outward and the inward, and he is knowing of all things." From a metaphysical perspective, this verse invites profound contemplation. In our earlier exploration of consciousness, we observed that consciousness appears as the primordial field within which everything arises. Every perception, conception, comprehension, and meaning of the outer world, and every experience of the inner world, appears within consciousness. In this sense, consciousness is encountered as both the beginning and the end of all experience, for nothing can be known apart from it. Likewise, the Qur'an points to a reality that is simultaneously the first and the last, the outward and the inward. While the divine reality transcends any finite concept of consciousness, the structure revealed by the verse bears a remarkable metaphysical resemblance to the insight that both inner and outer experience emerge within a deeper unifying ground. Both inner and outer arise within the field of consciousness. The Qur'an further declares in verse 215, "To Allah belong the east and the west. Wherever you turn, there is the face of Allah." This verse points toward the divine presence permeating all existence. Nothing stands outside the reality of God. Every phenomenon is a sign, manifestation, or disclosure of divine being. Wherever one looks, one encounters traces of the divine face. In our earlier analysis, we arrived at a similar metaphysical insight. Everything arises within consciousness. The verse suggests that wherever one turns, one encounters the signs of the divine reality. Thus, both perspectives point toward unity beneath apparent multiplicity, a reality in which all forms emerge from, subsist within, and ultimately return to a single underlying source. The Qur'an further declares in verse 50:16, "And we have already created man and know what his soul whispers to him, and we are nearer to him than his jugular vein." This verse offers one of the most intimate descriptions of the divine-human relationship found anywhere in Scripture. The Qur'an does not merely say that God knows human actions. It says that God knows what the soul whispers within itself before those thoughts are ever expressed outwardly. From a metaphysical perspective, this statement invites profound reflection. How can the infinite know every movement of every mind, every hidden intention, every silent thought, and every inward experience? In our earlier exploration of consciousness, we observed that every perception, conception, comprehension, feeling, intention, and experience appears within consciousness itself. Consciousness is immediately aware of every experience arising within it. Nothing occurring within the field of awareness is truly separate from awareness. While the divine reality infinitely transcends any finite conception of consciousness, the verse points toward a similar principle of radical intimacy. The one who is nearer than the jugular vein is not distant from experience, but immediately present to it. The innermost movements of the soul are already known because nothing stands outside the divine knowledge and presence. The verse also points toward a deeper unity underlying apparent multiplicity. Although human beings experience themselves as separate individuals, the divine reality encompasses all beings simultaneously. The infinite is aware of every awareness, every heart, and every soul. In this sense, the verse hints at an underlying unity of existence in which all beings remain sustained within a single divine presence. And where unity is fully realized, love naturally follows. Separation gives rise to fear, conflict, and alienation, whereas unity gives rise to compassion, harmony, and love. The nearness described in this verse is therefore not merely a statement about knowledge, but also a revelation of divine intimacy. The one who knows every whisper of the soul is also the one who is closer to the soul than it is to itself. Thus, the verse points simultaneously toward divine knowledge, divine nearness, the unity underlying existence, and the love through which all beings remain connected to their source. The human being, created as a sign among the signs of God, manifests both an outward and an inward aspect. The outer dimension is the physical body, formed from the elements of the earth and subject to the laws of material existence. The inner dimension is the mind, which finds its locus within consciousness that experiences, knows, loves, and ultimately returns to its source. The Qur'an reminds us of the transient nature of the body in verse 20:55. From it we created you, and into it we shall return you, and from it we shall bring you forth once again. The outer, i.e. the body, emerges from the earth and eventually returns to the earth. In this sense, the body follows the ancient truth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Everything material is subject to change, decay, and dissolution. The Qur'an further declares in verse 55:26 and 55:27, everything upon it perishes, and there remains the face of your Lord, possessor of majesty and honor. All forms pass away, all material structures dissolve, every body eventually yields to time. Yet the Qur'an simultaneously points beyond the realm of material impermanence toward a deeper and enduring reality. However, the inner dimension of the human being does not share the fate of the body. Concerning death, the Qur'an states in verse 385, every soul shall taste death. The verse does not say that consciousness becomes annihilated. Rather, the consciousness of the individuated self, or consciousness of outer self, tastes death as an experience. Death is not the destruction of consciousness, but a transition from one mode of existence to another. The continuity of the soul is further affirmed in verse 2154. And do not say about those who are killed in the way of Allah, they are dead. Rather, they are alive, though you perceive it not. And again in verse 23:100. Behind them is a barrier called barzakh, until the day they are resurrected. These verses indicate that consciousness continues beyond physical death, journeying through dimensions of existence that lie beyond ordinary perception. The Qur'an then presents one of its most beautiful descriptions of the soul's ultimate destiny in verse 89:27 to 89:30. O tranquil soul, return to your Lord, pleased and pleasing. Enter among my servants, and enter my paradise. Notice the language of return. One can return only to a reality from which one has come. The Qur'an also alludes to a primordial covenant before earthly existence in verse 7:172. Am I not your Lord? They said, yes, we testify. Before entering the world of forms, the soul stood in the presence of its Lord. Its earthly journey is therefore not merely a movement through time, but a journey of remembrance, a return to its origin. From a spiritual perspective, that origin, may be understood through one of the most fundamental realities disclosed throughout Revelation: love. Consciousness does not originate from matter. Matter provides the body, but not the conscious reality that knows, seeks meaning, longs for truth, and yearns for union. The deepest movement within the human heart is a movement toward the infinite. Every finite love points beyond itself toward an infinite love. Every search for beauty is a search for perfect beauty. Every longing for belonging is a longing for the one from whom the soul first received its being. Thus, while the body follows the path of earth to earth, the soul follows the path of love to love. The outer says, "From dust we came, and to dust we return." The inner says, "From love we came, and to love we returned." The body returns to the elements from which it was fashioned. The soul returns to the divine presence from which it received its existence. The body belongs to the world of form. The soul belongs to the world of meaning. The body is subject to time. The soul journeys toward the timeless. In this light, death is not the end of the human story. It is the completion of one chapter and the beginning of another. The grave receives the body, but it cannot contain the soul. The material world receives what is material. The divine receives what is divine in origin. For the body came from the earth and returns to the earth, but the soul came from the presence of the beloved and returns to the presence of the beloved. From love we came, to love we return. To conclude, I would like to point to one of the divine names of Allah, As-Salam, the source of peace, wholeness, harmony, and tranquility. Peace cannot arise from separation, conflict, or fragmentation. It emerges from unity, harmony, and the recognition of our interconnectedness. In this sense, the one who bestows perfect peace is also the one who embodies perfect love, for love is the force that heals division and restores unity. The infinite, therefore, reveals himself as the source of peace and the ground of love. It is therefore profoundly significant that the Qur'an declares in verse 319, "Indeed, the religion in the sight of Allah is Islam." The word Islam shares the same linguistic root sin, lum, and mim as salam, carrying meanings of peace, wholeness, harmony, surrender, and reconciliation. In its deepest spiritual sense, Islam is not merely adherence to a set of outward practices. It is the conscious surrender of the self to the divine reality through which peace is realized. If salam is the nature of the divine gift, then Islam is the path that leads toward that peace. And if peace is the fruit of unity, and unity is realized through love, then the path of Islam may be understood as a journey toward the embodiment of love itself. The infinite is a lover, and the path revealed by the infinite is the path of love.